episode December and January, we are in the second part of the show right now, where we are having a number of events, including several very experimental performances, all inspired by the engravings in the Bible and the multitude of heritage objects at the Museum of Christian Art. With that, I now hand over to Merrin Anil to take us through this wonderful presentation. Thank you.
Okay, now it is working. All right. Thank you so much for the lovely introduction. And it's always a pleasure coming back to Museum of Christian Art in some or the other way. And it was a really wonderful project that we have done in the year 2018 to 2019. So we actually stayed in the premises of Museum of Christian Art with our team and with the team of Museum of Christian Art. And then we actually saw the refurbishing project, how all the architectural conservation and everything happened. And we were also part of the display process also. So today, this is something which we did in our lab. And like, I will be going through like how we were associated with Museum of Christian Art and more about the project, as well as also the main topic for discussion today, that is the conservation and digitization of the 18th century Bibles. So let me start with INTACH. So I am the center coordinator for Delhi Conservation Lab. So basically we have, just a minute. Okay, so we will just start with the presentation. I think I'm experiencing a bit of technical difficulty here. Just a minute. Okay, so Museum of Christian INTACH has a lot of chapters. So I work with the Delhi INTACH chapter, and basically we have a conservation lab in Delhi, and where we conserve all kinds of art objects, including textile, paper, oil paintings, easel painting, ethnographic object, ivory objects, and so and so. So INTACH also has projects which happens all over India. And mostly the projects happens like, for example, the Museum of Christian Art was a project which was in which we had a lot of collections. So since it was a museum object, we didn't want to take away the collection from the museum premises and take it to our lab. So we decided that we will set up a lab inside the museum premises. And so we were given a spot in the Santa Monica convent where we set up our temporary lab. And that's how we started the work with Museum of Christian Art when the conservation project started. There's just a bit of... Natasha ji, are you there online?
Yes, Merrin.
Yeah, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, so would it be possible for you to run the presentation from your end?
Download and then share screen. So give me a few minutes. So in the meantime, you can explain a little bit about what you've done.
Okay. Yeah, I think it worked. Okay, I think just like a lot of things happening all together. So it just had a bit of lag there. Yeah. It was working fine earlier. So it happens. Okay. Anyways, so Indian National Trust for Art and Cultural Heritage, that is what INTACH is. And it was founded in 1984 in New Delhi. So our basic vision is to spread heritage awareness and conservation in India. So we have around 190 chapters across the country. So basically what happens is like for example, we also have a Goa chapter. We also have chapters in Kerala, we have in all over India. And most of the chapters are mostly concerned about the heritage activities like spreading heritage awareness, or if there is any concern related to architectural conservation, material conservation, even natural heritage conservation also. These chapters report back to our head office in Delhi, and then the concerned department are sent to those areas, and then the conservation work happens. So it is not limited to just material conservation. It is also architectural conservation which happens, and it is also natural heritage conservation that includes lakes, landscaping, and so and so. Then we also have a unit that is the HEX division, which is Heritage Awareness Division, which basically empowers younger generation, younger children, like schools. They approach schools and various other educational institution, and have this heritage walks to have an awareness among the younger lot of importance of heritage and how it has to be protected and conserved for the future generation. So our division is the Art and Material Heritage Division. So which is basically concerned about conserving art and material heritage that includes paper objects, manuscripts, paintings, prints, photographs, oil paintings, and so and so. So in the presentation, you can see there are listed, like we have this actively working 4 of these centers are there, which are called as INTACH Conservation Institutes, where anyone can approach with a collection or with just a single object they have and they care for it and they want it to be restored or conserved for a longer time. Then they can come to our centers, and then our experts will look at these objects, and they can give you the suggested treatments as well as the time frame required for doing or taking up the work. So this is just about INTACH Conservation Institute. Moving on, I'll be just discussing the association of INTACH and Museum of Christian Art. So it was in the year 2014 that I went to Museum of Christian Art as an assistant trainee, assistant conservator at that time. And basically my job, and one of my teammate was there. So our job was to basically look around all the objects, which was in the collection of the Museum of Christian Art. And it was in the year 2014. So we were just looking around the objects, and we were there to do a condition assessment report to see what all conservation requirements are there for all the objects in the collection. So the collection ranged, as most of you already have been part of museum, like you must have visited Museum of Christian Art. So you must be aware about the wide range of collection they have. They have so many wonderful ivory sculptures. They have so many wonderful polychrome wooden sculptures and textile objects, palanquins, which are very rare and you cannot find anywhere, maybe not that kind of detailed work which you see on those palanquins. So very rare Indo-Portuguese art and Christian art objects were in the collection. So our task, the team which went to the Museum of Christian Art in 2014 was to make a detailed condition assessment of all the objects in the collection and to see what treatments they require and what are the immediate objects which should be taken care of, like which need immediate conservation. So to have a plan, like what should be the conservation approaches. So we compiled a detailed project report, and then for the fundings and everything, it took a while. And it was in 2018 when this project got approved and the funding was released. And then we were able to set up this temporary lab, as I was initially talking to you about, in 2018 in the Santa Monica convent, in the church itself. And we also had an additional space where we used to have a temporary lab setup also. It was not in the Santa Monica complex, but it's near to the old age home there. So that was our space which was given to us, and our team was there for a long period of like 1 year. And some of the collections like textile objects or and the Bibles, which could not be conserved there, were brought to INTACH lab. And we were also part of the final display, setting up the display. As you can see, some of the images, like the conservation activity happening on the left side. A person is cleaning an ivory sculpture and we are doing technical examination. Then a person is helping with display settings. So this is how our association with Museum of Christian Art was. So now we would be talking about the Bibles, which is the main topic of discussion. So we received 2 Bibles, and there was also one written manuscript which we received along with this object. But right now, I'm sharing with you the images of the first Bible. Even though you might be seeing that Book of Rules is written on it, it was just kept there because we were not aware that this is the Parsa Prima. So when we opened up, we realized this is the Bible and it is Parsa Prima. So as you can see that there is a lot of damages to the leather binding. So there were termite attacks, all the detailings were ruined, and then there was also loss of leather, as well as there were scratches on the Bible. So it also had 2 of the locks, which had tarnished. It was made of silver and it had tarnished. So you can see in this image. And from the side, you can see that there are on the third image, on the lower right side, you can see that there is a loss on the corner of the Bible. So the leather part was lost from that piece. So this Bible had a better binding, and but the internal conditions were not as good as we thought it would be, because there was also previous mendings in form of tear mending. So some of the tear mendings was done in such a way that it covered some wordings from the Bible. As you can see, there's these big patches which are there. These were all attempted tear mendings. So even though that kind of contained the problem for some time, but it was not very well done, because it was also hindering the letters which were there underneath. And you can also see there were the Bible was completely illustrated. It has many illustrations, lithographs on which was attached in between the pages. So these had fold marks, as well as due to aging, there was acidic content was there in the pages, and it had turned yellow, and some of them were brittle, as well as very evident stains were also visible. This was also having problems of termite attack and loss of paper. So wherever there were termite attack, that area was completely fragile. So the tear would have, the termite attack led to more tears, and it was more and more fragile in those areas, and fold marks and stains. These were some of the problems. These problems are common with both the Bibles. So this is a second Bible. This is Pars Altera. So with this particular one, the binding was in a really bad condition. Like the front cover of the binding had separated. As you can see on the images at the right, that binding cover has completely lifted off from the surface, and it had completely separated. There were scratch marks and loss of detailings from the leather, as it was for the previous one. But with this particular Bible, the problem was that the binding was loosely bound, like the stitches had opened up and the pages were really loosely bound. And as you can see in one of the image, so when we opened up the Bible, the condition were quite similar to the other one. That is like termite attack and loss of paper was there, as well as fold marks was there. And you can see that the pages were loosely bound. There is no thread which is holding the pages together. So previous mending, as visible in the previous object, it was also same for this Bible also. So for conservation treatment, we started with unbounding the Bible. That is like opening up the stitches which were loosely bound, as well as for both the Bibles. The conservation treatment for both the Bibles are almost same. For one, it was easier to remove from the binding because the threads were very loosely bound. For one which was very intact, we had to mechanically remove them using a scalpel. We cut the threads, and we had separated the pages. So that is how the second image, in the second image shows that how the pages were removed and arranged in the section form. And then once the pages were separated, the binding, it was removed from its binding. Mechanical cleaning was done with a soft brush because there were termite attacks and deposits of dust and residues of insects inside them. So before starting a solvent cleaning or doing any kind of solvent cleaning, we wanted to make sure that all the dust and all loosely bound particles are cleaned up. Otherwise, if you put or immerse them in a solution for cleaning, it might be a possibility that the any adhesive content or anything can stick or adhere or penetrate inside the pages itself. So we made sure that nothing, all the loosely bound dust and dirt particles and accretions are removed mechanically. Once that was achieved, we started the solvent cleaning. So basically it is to remove the acidic content from the paper. So basically washing off the acidic content. So you can see the when we dipped it in the solution, the page has turned yellow. So it is basically the acidic content which is leaching out. And when the paper was soft enough, all the previous mendings which were there, that started to come out easily. So this is removal of previous mending. Okay, so once the mendings were removed, our next process was to start the lining, because this paper had not much of a strength that it could survive without a lining. So then we decided that we will give a lining to the page so that it acts as an additional support to the paper, gives it the additional sizing material as well as flexibility. And so that's how we started with the lining process. So for lining, what we basically do is we use a Japanese tissue paper, which is acid-free content, which is acid-free and in nature, and it has long fibers. So the fibers would give additional strength or support to the pages itself. So this is basically the preparation of lining. That is, firstly, Japanese tissue paper is lie down flat, and then moisture is introduced to the Japanese tissue paper so that all the creases and everything gets removed from the tissue, and it is flat enough. Once it is flat, we add adhesive. Basically, it's a starch-based adhesive, which is reversible in nature. And once this Japanese tissue is prepared, we would prepare the page itself. That is, we would make the page flat, cleaned. The solvent cleaning is already done. We would put it out on a clean Melanex or a or a sheet, Melanex sheet, or a Melanex or a mylar sheet, and we would make sure that there is no creases, no bulges or waviness. We would make sure that the paper of the Bible, which we are going to treat, is completely flat. Once that is achieved, we put over this Japanese tissue paper, which has adhesive on it, and we place it and we adhere it to the back of the paper. So sometimes where we feel that the acidic content has been leached out and there is a problem with the visibility, we also add stain the pages so that the visibility matches with the original page itself. So this is how the lining is done. So after lining, you can see that after cleaning as well as lining, you can see there is a bit of more clarity to the pages or the lithographs. So this is how after lining. So this is basically a technique which we do for drying. So what happens is once you line, so in the previous image, you can see that there is a lot of moisture when we do this process. That is once you do the solvent cleaning, there's a lot of moisture content in the paper or the folio which we are treating. So we have to make sure that when we add the lining also, it is again having a lot of moisture. So we have to make sure that this both of them adhere properly, as well as there is no air pockets which happens in between the pages. So we have to keep it stretched. Once it is lined, the pages are lined, we have to keep it in a stretched condition so that when it dries, it has to dry. The lining paper and the paper which has been lined, both of them should evenly dry out. Otherwise, what happens is if an air pocket can happen, creases or waviness can happen, or the lining itself can disintegrate. It might open up from one side. So for this purpose, we have added some paper tapes at the, we would leave an extra layer of Japanese tissue paper, and this paper tape is placed which has adhesive on there, so that it keeps it restrained from having movement while it is drying. And once it is dried, it would dry flatly without having a waviness or creases or anything. Once the lining process was area where it is supposed to join with the next page, that that bit would have at least 1 inch extra tissue with it, so that when we make it into a section, there is an end where we can bind it. So we are just so in the image, the second image, we are showing that we are adding adhesive at the edge of the strip for making the section. Once the sections are made together, that is like sections are like when we add up all the pages. So it's not like a paper, all the pages of the book has been stitched together. It is like they would be mini sections, like there would be sections of 8 pages together. That would be one section. And it might be having, like in the previous old notebooks, you can see that there would be a page which is at the center. So that is one section. And then there would be a couple of others which is supporting from the back. So that is how the sections are like. It could be an 8 section, it would be a section of 8 folios, or it would be a section of 2 folios or 4 folios. So this particular binding had book had sections of 8 folios. And then we have numbered it before, after removing the binding, we numbered all the pages, we arranged it in sections. And once we had the page numbers and everything intact, then only we did the cleaning and all the other treatments. So as per the our numbering, we have stitched it together. And this is how the restitched sections look like. So what happens is, when we remove paper or folios from a binding and we do all kind of treatment, like add sizing to it, add lining to it, so it bulks up. So it has a lot of weight, so like additional material to it. So the original binding may be not that great it won't be able to go back into the original form itself. So we had to add weight so that the sections are bound together properly, and there is no excess, like it should be flat. It shouldn't be like some of the pages are wavy, some of the pages are not aligning properly. So for that purpose, we would add some weight to it and hold it together till the adhesive or on the sides start drying up, where the binding is put together or joined together. So once the binding dries up, we add another layer, the spine. Basically on the spine of the book, we would add a supporting cloth which would protect all the stitches together, so that it would not eventually disintegrate. So there is an adhesive which is added on the spine. Then the cloth is put there so that the stitches stay intact. And once the stitches and all this process is done, then there is a acid-free paper which is pasted to the side of the spine. And then there are 2 boards which have been put on the front and back of the object, on which the leather covering would be then placed or pasted. So the leather covering was also cleaned, and then polishing was done of the leather covering, as well as reintegration of colors were also done. So as we discussed earlier, there were these locks, silver locks, which were on the 2 sides of the Bible. Those were also cleaned. Tarnishing was removed. So this is like how the locks were put back onto the binding, and this is the end product. So this is the book after the Bible, after conservation, binding and conservation. So this is the before and after image, before conservation, past prima, and after conservation, past prima. This is how it was like after mending and all the. So we end up changing the pages, the first, like the side pages, which were acidic in nature, and it had a lot of termite attacks also. So we have changed that and kept an acid-free content, because these are not actually original to the object itself. So we have removed it and made an acid-free separator between the binding and the starting page. So this is Pars Altera. So this is the before and after image. So the lithographs after, before and after conservation. This is before and after conservation. Okay. So now we were also involved with the digitization process. So basically the idea for digitizing the object, this Bible was like, since it is an 18th century, they were 18th century Bibles. So it should be able, the availability or the accessibility should be there for the general public, even since the material itself is paper and it is some organic in nature, and no matter how much we try to conserve it, with the ever changing environmental factors and biological activities and everything happening, there is a possibility that there are like a lot of conservation problems might happen in the future also. So but nevertheless, the information which is supposed to be there should be preserved in such a manner that it is accessible for generations to come. So the idea of digital conservation was already there with Museum of Christian Art. And the one possibility with digitizing the object is like, we have a limitation when we do conservation, we have a limitation of recreation. Like it is always something which is contested and an ethical point of view, that how much recreation should be done to an object. Because for example, this is an 18th century Bible, and the wear and tears which had happened from the making of the Bible till now, that is there, which is a part of historical but we don't want to add any additional elements from our side, which may be not to like visually improve or aesthetically improve the look of the object, because that is not our aim. The only aim we have is to survive, make them survive all the environmental changes and everything which is happening happening and which is inevitable. They should be able to survive them. That was the only aspect of conservation which we had in our mind. So we did all the required treatments to conserve this object, but the digital restoration aspect had enhanced the aesthetical value. So there is no direct intervention or alterations to the original content or the original look of the object. And as you can see, the after scan version. So there are like 3 versions. This is before, first one is the before conservation. That is how we received it. And once this was removed from the binding, we made sure all the pages are scanned the way it is, because when there is a binding, there is a bit of restriction. Some of the edges get cut, or we are not able to scan them properly. So once the binding was removed, we scanned every pages. So you can see the before conservation scanned version. And then after conservation, this is how it came. It was looking. And this is the last images after conservation, the scanned version. Like all the areas which were damaged, like for example, the fold marks, the adhesive stains, all of them were digitally restored or digitally removed, and all the parts which were missing was added. For example, in the next lithograph, you can see that there are a lot of holes in because of insect attack. The paper was eaten away, and you can see there were a lot of losses, and all those losses was digitally recreated so that the aesthetic appeal is maintained, which we did not do for the original object itself. It is only the digital version which has these alterations or changes. And since this Bible came to us from Museum of Christian Art from Goa, and it was supposed to be transported back from our Delhi lab, this is how we packed it up, and we added mount boards for supporting it, and this is how it was sent back. So that is all for the journey of conservation for the Bibles. And yes.
Thank you, Merrin, for taking us through this entire process of the conservation of the Bibles as well as the digitization process to give an understanding of why digitization and how it is different from what you would do in conservation. I now request if any of you have questions to just put it in the chat box, and then we'll call out your name and you can unmute yourselves then and ask the questions. So anybody, we have students here from Goa University, other people who have done courses in museology. So if anybody has any question for Merrin, I invite you now to put it in the chat box and then we'll take it up. So there is a question here. I don't know who the person is. I can't see. Snehal. Hello, I have a question. The Bible is from which country and was this in Latin? Yes, Snehal. Merrin, can I answer this? It's an 18th
Yes, that is a question for you.
it is an 18th century Bible dated 1740. It was printed in Belgium. And yes, it is in Latin because that was the official language of the Catholic world that was used until the 1960s. So the entire Bible is in Latin. Interestingly, the engravings, which are side by side in the Bible, along with the texts, they have the description of the engraving in 6 different languages.
Oh, wow. Okay, thank you.
Welcome, Snehal. Anyone else has a question that you would like to put in the chat box? Lina. Lina has a question. Has INTACH worked on many other Bibles of this sort? If yes, where were they different challenges or even other manuscripts? Merrin?
I'm not very sure about the Bibles, but we have worked with a lot of collection Christian art in particular. For example, we had wall paintings from St. Aloysius Chapel. And interestingly, what was the main, like they had paper objects also. And most of these objects had like watercolor drawings as well as illustrations of Christ, life of Christ, and these were sent from St. Aloysius Chapel to INTACH Lab. It was something similar to the Museum of Christ, not like the Bible, because the Bible was printed on paper and it was not.
We can't hear you, Merrin.
Because they were what?
Now we can hear. Go ahead, Merrin.
Okay. Okay, so most of them were like watercolor objects. Then there were like also pencil, graphite, and oil paints, dry pastels. These were used, and these were sent to us they were illustrations which were sent to us for conservation. So with them, the main problem was of termite, and because paper being such a material which is very hygroscopic in nature, stains occur very commonly with paper objects. These were some of the challenges we had, and apart from those, we have a lot of experience with conserving manuscript.
Go ahead, Merrin.
INTACH Delhi lab, and Lucknow Center specializes in conservation of books, manuscripts. I hope that answers the question.
There is a question also from Lester. Hi, Lester. Thanks for joining us. And Lester is was part of Engraved Treasures Part 1. He's an architect, also works with INTACH in Bangalore. And Lester asks the question of what goes on in the transportation of such precious objects. And you showed us how it is packed, but are there any other special precautions that need to be taken in the transport to transport it across so many miles? Everybody's concern, ours primarily as people working in the museum, always worried till the object gets to the center, and of course when it leaves the center till it reaches back to MoCA. So a big concern, especially because there were textiles and books that went. So Merrin, would you like to throw more light on the extra precautions that are taken during this transportation of objects?
Yes, actually, when these Bibles were sent, so we also had a collection of textile, as Natasha ji has said that we also had a collection of textiles which were sent to Delhi Center, which needed some specialized equipments for treatments. So in these, all the objects were to be sent together in one box. So a wooden box was was there, and it was made by the person, the people who took over they had the charge of transportation. They had already provided it with the case. So what we did was we were specially concerned about how the object should be placed, and whether it should, like, there were so many objects which were supposed to be transported together. So proper padding has to be done. For example, the textiles were first covered with a cloth, then a silicone paper was put on the object, so that there is no abrasion or any kind of mechanical disturbance should not be there on the object, scratches and everything. To avoid all of that, we had a silicone coated paper. Then we added a layer of bubble wrap, and then there was this foams which were padded, which was given on the object. So most of the textile objects were sent in rolled conditions, and there were rolls with textile first, then the roller was there, the textile was there, then there was this layer of cloth, then there was this layer of silicone, then a bubble wrap was there, then there was more foam was there, and then all of these were securely all of this were tightly taped together, and then it was placed. And then we made sure, even for the Bible it was the case, there was a silicone coated paper on the leather part, and then there was this bubble wrap, and then a mount board was that, so that the shape would be retained. It shouldn't be like we don't know how it is going to be, even though the transportation person responsible for transportation would be careful with the objects. They would not be dealing it like any other cargo material, but still we wanted to make sure that everything is like securely placed. So placement of all the textile objects were important. Like all the rolls were, I wish I could show you that email, like all of them had, all the rollers were kept in one side. All the objects which had, like, the even distribution has to be there according to the size and shape, so that nothing is coming on top of each other and adding more weight to the object. So those were the precautions we took, so that nothing damages while it has been transported. And more or less, there is also importance of documenting all the objects, like how you're transporting. You need to have images like how this has been transported, what has been placed where, so that the person who opens it knows that what has to be taken out first and what has to be taken out last. It shouldn't be like the other person doesn't know, and like maybe some object shouldn't be taken out first, which is like very heavy, or which is very delicate, has to be taken out and kept separately. Then the rollers has to be and like opened up. Those things has to be like discussed while the transportation part happens. Okay.
Also, just to add on, we transport these objects. We use companies that are specialized in transportation of fine arts. So they are called fine arts handling agents, and we only work with them. We don't work with the regular movers and packers, because then we have to work with people who are specialized and know how to handle the fine arts, and work only with them. For museum and art galleries will work only with such handling agents. I hope, Lester, that answers your question. And moving on to...
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Esther.
And thanks, Merrin. Yeah.
Okay.
Snehal has another question as to whether INTACH or Merrin, have you and your team conserved any Bible which was handwritten?
We had the book of rules, the manuscript. It was actually handwritten and very water sensitive. But it was it doesn't come as the Bible. It is a book of rules.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, okay. Yeah, okay. Thank
Would anyone else have any other question that you would like to ask Merrin? If you all would like to get in touch with Merrin after this session, also we can please reach out to us and we can share the email contact for Merrin at INTACH, and definitely you all can get in touch with her. And we've had a very, very good working relationship with INTACH. In fact, the museum was set up in collaboration with INTACH, and this latest collaboration where they came and worked with us and to conserve our collection was a very good experience. And they've been part of the installation team as well that helped us install all the collection in the museum. See that whatever we've done in terms of conservation is now not deteriorating when we install it. And looking forward to many more collaborations with INTACH. And before we end, one last round of questions, if anyone has.
these Bibles are placed in the Museum of Christian Art, right? So whenever we visit the museum, we can see them, right?
That question was from you, right? Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
So, okay. The objects that we're talking about, yes, the Bible is on display. At the museum, one Bible is displayed, but it's closed, and one Bible is kept open, so you can see it. And also we have the temporary exhibitions that Lina spoke about in the beginning, which is engraved treasures, where the digitized prints based on a particular theme. Currently, the theme is the adult life, death, and resurrection of Christ, which is on display. And as part of the exhibition, along with the prints from this 18th century Bible, we also have asked artists to respond to these prints and this theme, and their artworks are also displayed alongside the 18th century prints. And we have some performances, some artists who are showcasing performances as part of the exhibition. So yes, if you come down to Goa till the 30th of April, you will also get to see the exhibition. And of course, otherwise you can see the Bible, but just one Bible is open for now.
Oh, okay, yes, thank you.
Okay. So if there are no more questions, should we end this session? Merrin, you have anything to say to the whole group here?
Thank you for joining and thank you for inviting me for this session. It was really wonderful to come back and speak about the works we have done. And I hope we will be having some more sessions in the future because I also had this opportunity to do some research work regarding the collection. So probably in future when everything is in place, we can come back and discuss about it.
We look forward to that, the research findings based on your research and conservation work that you did. And we look forward to a presentation in the near future. And thank you, Merrin, for being part of Engraved Treasures and through this presentation on the conservation process and digitization process of the Bible. And thank you to all of you who took time out today and joined us for this session. I hope it added value to what you already know about conservation and digitization. And do visit the museum if you have not, to see the exhibition and to see the Bibles. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you. Thank you so much.